I'm 88 years old. I don't say that with pride or drama. It's just a fact now, like the stiffness in my hands or the quiet in my house. And at this age, there's something I can finally see clearly, something that was deciding my life long before I ever noticed it. Fear. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that pretends to be responsibility. I'm telling this because there isn't much time left to tell it, not because I think my story is special, but because it's ordinary, painfully ordinary, and I know how easy it is to live an entire life without realizing what's been guiding your steps. These days, my mornings are slow. I wake up before the sun most of the time, not because I'm disciplined, but because my body doesn't know how to sleep in anymore. I sit on the edge of the bed and wait for my knees to cooperate. The house is silent in a way that feels permanent. No one is rushing off to work, no voices from the kitchen, just the sound of the clock reminding me that it's still moving, even if I'm not. When you're young, you think fear feels like panic, like shaking hands or racing thoughts. But now I know better. Fear can feel like common sense. It can sound like a reasonable voice saying, "Not now," or "Be careful," or "That's not realistic." And if you listen to it long enough, it doesn't feel like fear at all. It feels like who you are. I didn't wake up one day and decide to live small. I didn't say no to my life in one dramatic moment. I just kept postponing it. In my 20s, I thought I was cautious, sensible. I grew up in a household where stability mattered more than joy. My parents were good people, tired people. They had lived through hard times, and they believed safety was the highest goal. Don't risk what you have. Don't reach for what might disappear. That kind of thinking settles into you early. I had dreams back then, though I don't like that word much. They weren't grand. I didn't want fame or anything like that. I wanted to write. I wanted to live somewhere else for a while. I wanted to marry for love, not convenience. Simple things, ordinary hopes. But each one came with a question that scared me. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if I disappoint someone? So I chose the safer path. I took the job that paid steadily instead of the one that excited me. I stayed in the town I knew instead of the city that called to me. I told myself I was being mature, responsible. I told myself I could always change things later. Later became my favorite word. I married someone kind enough. We respected each other. We didn't fight much. We also didn't talk about the things that mattered. I think we both sensed that something was missing, but neither of us wanted to name it. Naming things makes them real. Silence is safer. We built a life that looked solid from the outside. A house, children, routine. I went to work every day. I paid the bills. I showed up to school events when I could. I did what was expected. And because nothing was obviously wrong, I assumed everything was fine. Fear doesn't ruin your life by destroying it. It does it by shrinking it, slowly, until you don't remember how big it was supposed to be. There were moments, small ones, invitations I declined, conversations I avoided, times I felt a pull in my chest and ignored it because it felt inconvenient. I missed birthdays because of work, missed chances to apologize because I didn't want to be uncomfortable, missed saying I love you because it felt awkward and I assumed the feeling was understood. I remember once my wife asked me if I was happy, not angrily, just quietly while we were washing dishes. I laughed it off, said happiness was overrated, said we were doing fine. What I really meant was that I was afraid to look too closely at the answer. Fear doesn't always say no. Sometimes it says, not today. Years passed like that,
decades, really. The children grew up, they moved away. We spoke on holidays. I told myself that was normal, that everyone drifts, that this is just how life goes. I didn't notice how lonely I was becoming, because loneliness arrived politely. It didn't announce itself. It just sat down beside me one day and never left. The cost didn't show up all at once. It showed up in the way my wife and I stopped touching, in how conversations became about logistics instead of feelings, in how my children called less and I didn't call more. I told myself they were busy. I told myself I didn't want to bother them. The truth was, I didn't know how to reach for people anymore. Fear had taught me to keep my hands to myself. I stayed at the same job for 40 years. It was fine. I was good at it. People respected me. When I retired, they gave me a watch and a speech. I smiled and thanked them. And then I went home and sat in my chair and realized I didn't know what to do next. My life had been organized around avoiding risk. Without the structure, there was nothing underneath. My wife got sick a few years after that. Not suddenly, slowly, the way things tend to happen at this stage of life. I took care of her. I did everything I was supposed to do. I wish I could say we found each other again in those final years, but the truth is, we were strangers who shared memories. We were gentle with each other, but distant. There were so many things we never said. When she died, I cried, of course I did. But the grief wasn't just for her. It was for the life we never fully lived together, for the conversations we postponed until there was no time left. That was the turning point, I suppose, not because it changed anything, it was too late for that, but because it stripped away the excuses. I could no longer pretend that there would be more time. I could no longer tell myself that silence was harmless. After she was gone, the house felt enormous. Every room echoed. I found old notebooks once, tucked away in a drawer, half-written stories, ideas I never finished. I sat there holding them, feeling like I was holding someone else's life, a younger man's life, a braver one. There are things that cannot be fixed. I cannot go back and choose differently. I cannot call my wife and tell her what I should have said when she was still listening. I cannot be the father my children needed when they were small. I see them now with their own lives, their own worries. We're polite, we're affectionate in a careful way, but there's a distance that can't be crossed anymore. Time doesn't forgive. It just moves on. People talk about regret as if it's loud and dramatic. It isn't. It's quiet. It sits with you in the evenings. It shows up when you realize no one is going to ask you about your day. It's in the understanding that when you're gone, you will be remembered briefly, and then life will continue without much interruption. That realization is humbling and painful and strangely clarifying. If I'm speaking to you now, it's because I don't think I have answers. I don't. I only have a clearer view of my own mistakes. I wish I had known that fear doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like responsibility. Sometimes it looks like being a good person. I wish I had known that waiting for the right time is often just another way of saying no. I wish I had understood that relationships don't survive on good intentions alone. They need presence. They need discomfort. They need you to show up, even when you're afraid of saying the wrong thing. I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm not telling you to throw your life away. I'm just saying this. Pay attention to what you're avoiding. Pay attention to the things you tell yourself you'll do someday. Someday is fragile. It disappears without warning. At 88, my days are simple. I sit by the window. I watch people walk by who don't notice me. I eat my meals alone. I think about the life I lived and the one I didn't. There is gratitude in me. I was fed, I was sheltered, I was loved in a way. But there is sorrow too, a deep one, for all the moments fear quietly took from me while I thanked it for keeping me safe. If this meant something to you, I hope you sit with it for a while, not to fix anything, just to notice. That's all I can offer now. I don't have much time left, I can feel that, and I'm finally at peace with it. But peace doesn't erase the truth, it just makes room for it. This is the truth of my life. Fear didn't scream at me, it whispered, and I listened.